Hi, welcome back to CS170 fall session. We're in week 11. This week we'll be hitting up on your second hourly exam. So I'm not gonna have like too many lectures. I think I'm just gonna try to get through this in one shot. And so let's see how far we go. I covered some of this stuff last week also. So I'm gonna try to keep it slim here. So the main thing here is you go into the modules from the main page. And let's go down here a little bit. And you can see spreadsheet resources, right? So there's the usual week 11 PDF, which will talk about stuff that you can refer to. Here we go. So here's the textbook. Here's a couple of different things here in terms of resources. So we put in some stuff here related to particular things like VLOOKUP, sum if, average if S, if error, Countif S. So that's all in here. And let me go back here. Back here, and then you have the spreadsheet resources here. Right, and it kind of covers just a little bit more, but kind of the same stuff. Here you have the charts. I mentioned this in last week's video too. So you have the different charts here, the different formulas here, counting cells, count if, pivot tables, VLOOKUP, and VLOOKUP tables. So you doing some of this stuff already for your extra credit, or you're going to be picking up next week. We're going to be doing pivot tables next week. But take a look at these things if you get a chance. Obviously, I know a lot of you are going to be studying for the exam, but these are the resources that are out there. So remember, from your home page in Canvas, you can go to modules. Of course, you can also go to my page, and my page, I also have the modules link here too. Okay, so either way, you can click on it. Some people asked about the second exam sample answers. That should be out sometime tonight, if not tomorrow. So hopefully that gets out there soon. I'm waiting for that to get published also. But if there's other questions you have about material for that, just feel free to send me or the TA's emails, post to Piazza, right? Try to make more use of Piazza. We are checking. So let me go over here, Piazza, see what we got here. Okay, so we got this one here. All right. Okay, so we have a question about the assignment 8, which I'll try to get to a little bit later. But it's not just me looking at this. All of the other TAs and professors should be looking at this, and hopefully you get a timely answer if you post something up there. So do try and do that. Okay. So let's go ahead and see what we have here. Okay. So this is talking about statistical functions. Some of the stuff we've already covered already. I think in prior lectures, we've covered things like if, and, or not. I think I might have covered if error also. And then we also have these different things, right? It's basically like if the thing that you're looking for meets that criteria, then you're gonna do something on it, right? In this case, do the average of those things or do a count. So we'll kind of get through that in a little bit and kind of draw a distinction between like average if and average if S. Okay. All right. So since I'm going to try to bang through this in like one lecture, I'm not going to really spend a huge amount of time on stuff that we've covered already for sure, which I know we covered the if statement already. And so it's just testing a condition, right? Okay. You can see here, right? I think this was actually one of our extra credits too, right? So you're testing this condition if C2 greater than B2, right? So here you can see like C2, well, actually I can't see the row here, but you'll assume that C2, right? Because this title here, that has to be the first row, right? So then this should be the second row, okay? So in the second row, C2, is that greater than B2, which is over here? Well, 921.58 looks bigger than 800 to me, right? So that means it's true, right? So if it's true, that means it goes to this second part here. Here's the comma, and then here's the second part here. It says over budget, and then over budget will be displayed over here, okay? And then if it's not, right, so it's like either equal to or less than, then it's going to be within budget, right? So here you have 324.98 is less than 375, right? So that means you're within budget here, okay? So that's what this if check is doing, right? I think on assignment 9, or it might be assignment 10, there's the bit about the wildcard, right? So remember with the wildcard, you can do concatenation, right? So there's a couple ways to do concatenation within Excel. And while I'm on the topic, let me just kind of do that. So here, and I don't know, let's say, right? So actually, I didn't want to put quotes like that. Okay, so CALIF, right? So let's say that's California, right? And then I want to put in the wildcard, let's say. Okay, so if I want to concatenate that, I can do, well, there's a concatenate function here, like this. And I'm going to say this and this. And then we have California. All right, well, actually Calif with the star after that. So that's one way to do concatenation. There's another way to do concatenation would be, I'm going to refer to this cell, and then I can do the ampersand sign and this. And I also have that, right? So see what I did there? You can see up here, the one cell with the ampersand and H10. Okay, so either way will work in terms of concatenation. So you can concatenate whatever you want, right? In this case, I'm concatenating this plus the star. Remember I said the star is a wild card, right? Let's say for the sake of argument, I'm going to do this. I don't have to do it this way. There's always multiple ways to do this, but let me go back up to here. And what is that? F10. Now I have a concatenation of the wildcard before and after Calif. Okay, and likewise, I can put that in here too, right? So I can do F10 like that. Okay. You might want to make a note of that. That might be something you find useful for your assignment. Okay. All right. All right. So if error function is to catch exactly these type of things, right? Let's say divide by 0 or something like that, right? There could be other things in terms of like bad cell references and whatnot. But let's try to do something like divide by 0. So let's say 5 and 0. So equals to this divided by this. All right, so that's the typical thing that you would get, right? But let's do like an if error here. So if error equals error, okay? So I'm gonna take this one divided by 0, comma, and then what I'm gonna say, it just happens, I know I'm checking for that right now. You probably don't want to say your error message here, but I'm gonna say it like this, divide by 0 error. Something like that, okay? And so that's exactly what it is, right? Because it found out that there was a 0 when it tried to divide 5 by 0, right? So I divided by K10 by K11. But let's say I don't have a divide by 0. I'm just going to make this a 1 now. So it becomes 5. So the actual thing you're going to do actually continues to work as long as you have good values in here. But if I decide to go like this, then I'm going to display that. All right, so that's what the if error would do. Okay. Okay, so we did a little bit about this where we calculated like payments and whatnot if you're borrowing money. And so you remember one key thing to remember is like, let's say you have the number of payments and you're talking in terms of monthly. Remember the rate that you have to do has to align with that, right? So you need monthly here to line up with the monthly here. Otherwise, your calculation is going to be all screwed up. Okay. So if I tell you that your interest or your loan is like, I don't know, 5% APR, whatever, right? Something like that. That means it's quoted at 5% a year, right? And if you're going to do something where you're calculating in terms of monthly, let's say the number of periods, you're talking in terms of like months, in this case, 60 months. That means you have to take that 5% and divide it by 12. Okay, to get like for like in terms of your calculations. So make sure you do that. I think I covered that in the PMT function before. Okay. And so here's like some examples here. Here's some examples here, right? It's talking about a car payment here. And you can see the formulas here, right? And remember what I said you have to do to show your formulas, right? So you would do a control tilde, which on my keyboard is like at the bottom left, and then top left here. And then you would see your formulas, okay? And then you can do likewise to flip it back. So over here, so pay attention to these. This is kind of what was displayed if we did like a control tilde here, right? So here you're talking about like your payment. And then remember, if there's like a P in front of it or I in front of it, you're talking about the principal or the interest portion of it. So this is like your total payment here. And then this is talking about what is the principal and the interest payment on it, depending on what period you're talking about. Okay. So this is like pretty standard types of like, let's say loan calculation type of stuff. So just remember, like just the regular PMT is your total payment, right? Right up here. And then if you see the same PMT, but there's like a P or I in front of it, then you're talking about like the principal or the interest. Okay. And remember, like you have to know which period you're talking about because your principal and your interest will vary throughout the life of the loan. Up front, you're gonna have a much bigger portion of your payment dedicated to interest payment versus like on the back end where your interest payment becomes fairly small. So that's why it's important to know which period you're talking about. Okay, so here's some more talking about PMT, right? Your principal, right? And then not your principal, your payment, right? PPMT is your principal, okay? And then your IPMT is your interest portion, okay? So if you want to on your own, you can go ahead and just type all of this stuff in here and you can play around with different types of interest rates and whatnot to figure out what your payments are, okay? It's all kind of laid out here. If you guys want to treat this as your extra credit, it's fair enough. You're definitely going to get a question on these, right? PMT, PPMT, and IPMT for your final exam when we cover Excel. So yeah, you want to play around with this, even though the answers are pretty much here. You can kind of put this in here, maybe try in like, whatever you want to try in, like some sort of loan or whatever, put that in here, okay? So I'll put that out there as your extra credit for this week. Hopefully it's a nice and simple one that you can bang out. Okay, so that's continuing with PMT. All right, so subtotal is interesting here, okay? So what is the difference between like subtotal and sum? Okay. So I'm going to put in some numbers here. Okay, so we're used to seeing something like this, right? And I'm just going to make this more clear by saying equals to sum. Sum of this to this, 25, right? And then I'm going to do subtotal. Subtotal. Okay, and where is the sum here? It's this one. Okay, so here, like that. And then I'm gonna take the same range again. So now that's also 25. Okay, so you say, okay, well, what's the difference between the sum and the subtotal then, right? It works out to be the same. So let me hide this one like so. Okay, so now you see what just happened here, right? The sum stayed to be 25, but the subtotal became 20, right? And why is that? Well, you have 4 plus 3, 6, and 7. That equals to 20. Okay. So what does that, maybe think about it for a second before I tell you, right? What does that mean? It means the sum, when I go over a range, it will pick up all of the numbers, whether you see it or not, right? Subtotal takes into account that you filtered something out, right? So let's say I did something here, I don't know, all the people in bucket A, right? So by me saying that I only show what's visible, it means that from a user standpoint, I'm looking at this, what I see is the right number here. Okay, so in general, if you're kind of working with a, let's say a report or like a table, and the person's kind of doing all kinds of filters and whatnot, generally you're kind of probably want to use subtotal because you basically want to see whatever it is, the average, the sum or whatever of what you see, right? If I see it as 25 here and then I look up here and I say, well, that doesn't look like 25 to me, that's a little bit misleading and could be confusing. Okay, now the other thing to notice, remember when I told you you can like highlight a range, you can see stuff at the bottom. Take a look at the bottom here. I think with the HD recording, you should be able to see this, but at the bottom, you can see it also shows a sum of 20. Okay, so the only thing that shows in the count is 4, obviously. So the only thing that really shows up that doesn't look like it matches the rest of the screen when you filter values would be the sum, right? So basically when it says 25, it's basically showing the hidden value here. So I open this back up, then you can see the 5 again, and then the subtotal becomes 25. Okay, so hopefully that is clear to you. What is the difference between using a sum versus the subtotal? Okay, so generally, if I'm looking like at a table of stuff, and if I want the average or the sum or whatever of something, I'll probably use the subtotal. Okay. And this page basically says the same thing I just said. Okay. And remember how I picked like the second one where the function number was like one of these 3-digit numbers versus the 1? And that's the difference. Include the hidden, ignore the hidden. Okay. So you see I picked 109 here, right? If I picked one of the single digit numbers here for my function number, where's the sum on this one? I picked the 9. This is a single digit 9, like that. 25, and then let me hide this. See, it's 25. So the subtotal, I can actually pick the function that either hides or doesn't include the hidden values. But like I said, generally, I'm going to use subtotal. I want the hidden values to be factored out. What's the sum here? 109. What did I just do here? I had an extra comma here. 109, like that. Okay. So that's what all this is saying right here. Okay. And or not, I actually spent a particular video talking about and or not. So make sure you understand this. This is something that also will be on the final exam. If you don't, make sure you let me know. Okay, so this just kind of breaks it out between the and function, the or function, and the not function. Okay, so this is just an extension of what we did before. We did the sum if, right? So if whatever is true, right? If bucket A, right, calculate the sum, okay? And you can do the average or the count in the same way, okay? Just for the heck of it, I have some numbers here. Let me do this. All right, so equals sum if, okay, like this, and like that. What's my criteria? I don't know, greater than 5, maybe, like that. Oops. What did I miss here? I'm missing something stupid here, I guess. Okay. I thought I put quotes in here, but I guess I didn't. So here's the quotes. So the range sum if D14 to D18, which is this, right? And then if it's greater than 5, which is just these two, right? 6 and 7, to make that 13. So that's what this sum if does here. Okay. Oops. All right. And so the average if is the same thing, right? So notice they use the name for the range here as opposed to the regular range. So let me just change this to be average if, but it really works the same way as the sum if, like that, like so. So the average of this is obviously 6.5. Okay. Okay, so what's the difference between doing like the regular if function and then putting in with s? So in this case, all that means is that you're meeting multiple criteria. Okay, so let me see here. Let me go back to the sum again. Guess it doesn't really matter, but let me say equals sum if s, right? And so I already have something in here for this first part here. And then okay. So let me see here. sum if, sum range, and then criteria range 1, and then criteria 1. Okay. So, and, okay. So right now I only put in one criteria. Now let me put in a second one, will be less than 7. Oh, I didn't put in the criteria range 2. And then 7, like that. Okay. So what did I do here? I just happened to put in the same range here. I'm trying to get the range between 5 and 7 here, right? So then it only picks up the 6 value here. And that's why you have the sum equals to 6 here. So D14 and D18, which is this set of cells here, and I put in multiple criteria. 1, that it's greater than 5, and 2, that it's less than 7. Okay, so that's how you're putting in like whatever function, sum or average, with multiple criteria. Okay, and this highlights the same thing here. So you can see they use D16 to D21 here, and then they use the second range here for E16 to E21. Okay, so this is the D here, which they were looking for all the Bellevue ones. And then here, E16 to E21, they're looking for the number of beds greater than 2. Okay, so this is how they specify multiple criteria. But basically, you specify the range that you want to look at, and then what's the criteria you're looking for. And then there's second range that you want to look at and the second criteria, right? And then in this case, they listed a third criteria here for the garage, right? So does it have a garage, right? So 3 different criteria they listed here, okay? Countif function, yeah, so countif is the same thing as a sum if, right? You have the range here, and then the criteria, double quote, greater than, less than, or whatever in here. And then the same thing with the countif s, you're gonna have multiple ranges and criteria. And then I just been working with the sum function and the sum if s function. Okay. All right, so take a look at these topics here, right? We've covered them over the last couple of weeks. If there's anything in here that you don't know or you're confused about, make sure you let me know. And I think we've hit on all these different things here. And then next week, we're going to be hitting on tables, pivot tables, pivot charts, and whatnot. And that's going to come into your assignment 11. That should be out there. Okay. All right. Thank you for your time today. I'll post these up to Canvas shortly.